My name is Ken Weller, and I've seen the British car industry from the inside for the better part of my life. I've seen the triumphs and the troubles, but what's happening now today, on this 11th of August 2025, is something else entirely. It's a slow-motion car crash orchestrated by people in Westminster who wouldn't know a spanner from a sausage roll. They're obsessed with this grand idea called net zero, a policy that sounds lovely on paper but is gutting the heart of British manufacturing. They've given us a deadline, a barrel-chested order to stop making petrol and diesel cars and switch entirely to electric vehicles. It's a mandate that ignores reality, ignores the market, and most importantly, ignores the workers. The problem isn't the ambition, it's the brutal, unthinking execution. They're forcing a transition so fast that our factories simply cannot keep up. We're seeing production lines shut down, not because we've run out of ideas, but for so-called retooling. Last year, in 2024, our car production fell off a cliff, dropping by nearly 12% to below 1 million cars for the first time in ages. By May of this year, it was even worse, plummeting by nearly a third compared to the year before. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent real jobs, real families, and real communities being hollowed out by a green dream that feels more like a nightmare. While our leaders pat themselves on the back for their climate credentials, the factories are falling silent. We've seen announcements of shutdowns and job losses from some of the biggest names in the business, all citing the immense cost and disruption of this forced march to electric. It's a bitter pill to swallow when you know we can build some of the best cars in the world. Instead, we're being told to dismantle what works in favor of something that, as we'll see, the public doesn't even want. The government is essentially telling a world-class sprinter to forget running and start hopping on one leg, then wondering why he's falling behind in the race. This top-down approach is classic political folly. They set a target without a plan, without proper investment, and without listening to the people on the ground. They dream of a futuristic Britain full of silent, whirring electric cars, but they're paving the road to that future with the rubble of our industrial present. The drop in output isn't a temporary blip or a growing pain, as some suits in London like to call it. It's a wound, and if we don't change course, it could very well be a fatal one for an industry that once made this country proud. Now, you'd think that if the government was forcing this massive shift, it must be because everyone is clamoring to buy an electric car. You would be wrong. The simple, unvarnished truth is that real, ordinary people are not rushing to showrooms to buy these things. The demand just isn't there. The government has set a target for this year, 2025, that 28% of all new cars sold must be battery electric. But as of the halfway point, the market share was stuck at just over 21%. They are failing to meet their own unrealistic targets, and the whole industry is paying the price for it. To mask this weak demand, a desperate game is being played. It's a game of smoke, mirrors, and massive discounts. Over the last year and a half, a staggering £6.5 billion has been wiped off the value of new EVs through discounts just to get them off the forecourts. This isn't a healthy, booming market. It's a market on life support, propped up by unsustainable handouts. And when that wasn't enough, what did the government do in June? They announced another grant, throwing another £650 million of taxpayers' money at the problem, trying to bribe people into buying the cars they don't really want with a £3,750 discount. This creates a completely false economy. The growth we see in EV sales isn't driven by genuine consumer choice. It's driven by fleet sales to big companies chasing tax breaks and a small number of retail buyers lured in by hefty price cuts. Meanwhile, consumer confidence is dropping and the number of people actually planning to buy a new car is falling. People are worried about the cost of living, the reliability of the charging network, and the simple fact that an EV doesn't fit their lifestyle. You can't force a square peg into a round hole, no matter how much you subsidize the peg. And to add insult to injury, the government's policies are a complete mess of contradictions. One minute they're offering grants, the next they're slapping new taxes on EVs. They've recently decided that the expensive car supplement on vehicle excise duty will now apply to electric cars, removing one of the key financial benefits that tempted people in the first place. It's chaotic. They are pushing with one hand and pulling with the other, leaving both consumers and manufacturers utterly bewildered and creating a market that is fundamentally broken and reliant on handouts. While we're busy tying ourselves in knots over net zero and trying to flog cars nobody wants, another country is playing a completely different game. That country is China. They are not faffing about with confusing mandates and half-baked subsidy schemes. They are executing a clear, ruthless, and state-backed plan to dominate the global car market, and right now Britain is looking like an easy meal. While our production was falling off a cliff, China's grew by over 5% last year. They now build more than a third of all cars on the planet. This isn't just about what they build at home, it's about what they're sending here. Walk past any major port in the UK and you will see fleets of ships arriving, packed to the rafters with Chinese-made cars. China is now the #1 source of car imports into Europe, and their share is growing at an alarming rate. These aren't just any cars, they are cheap electric vehicles, often built with the help of massive state subsidies. They are flooding our market at prices our own manufacturers, crippled by our own government's policies, have absolutely no chance of matching. So let's get this straight. Our government is forcing our car industry to make expensive electric cars that are difficult to sell. At the very same time, it is allowing a flood of cheaper, subsidized electric cars from China to pour into the country, undercutting the very industry it claims to be supporting. It is utter madness. We are essentially fighting with one hand tied behind our back, while our opponent is being handed a sword by the referee. The result is predictable. When our trade balance suffers, our factories struggle and our jobs are put at risk. The contrast is stark. In China, the government and the car industry work hand in glove. They have a long-term strategy for global dominance built on scale, state support and aggressive pricing. Here in Britain, our government seems to have a strategy for industrial self-harm. They are more interested in looking good at international climate conferences than in protecting the livelihoods of the people they are supposed to represent. We are in a trade war, whether we want to admit it or not, and our leaders have sent us into battle unarmed. So where does this leave us? We are stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock is a dogmatic, inflexible net zero policy that is detached from economic reality. The hard place is a tidal wave of subsidized foreign competition that threatens to wash away what's left of our domestic industry. We are being sacrificed on the altar of green targets, and the result is not a vibrant new economy, but a hollowed-out industrial heartland and an increasing reliance on a superpower that does not share our interests. It is a catastrophic failure of common sense. The path forward is not to abandon our environmental responsibilities, but to inject a dose of realism into the debate. The government must pause these ludicrous EV mandates. They need to stop forcing a product on the public that the public is not ready for. Instead, they should support a more gradual, multi-technology approach, embracing hybrids alongside electrics, and allowing the market and the technology to mature naturally. Forcing a revolution overnight only ever leads to chaos, and that is precisely what we are witnessing in the British car industry today. We need a government that is on our side. That means defending our industry from unfair competition, not rolling out the red carpet for it. If other countries are subsidizing their industries to undercut ours, we must be prepared to take action to level the playing field. We need a proper industrial strategy, not a climate slogan, one that focuses on creating real sustainable jobs here in Britain, building cars that people actually want to buy, whether they are petrol, diesel, hybrid or electric. This isn't just about cars, it's about our country's ability to make things, to innovate, and to provide good jobs for future generations. We cannot be a nation that just buys things from abroad. We must be a nation that builds. The current course is leading us towards industrial decline, and we need to change direction, fast. If you agree, if you believe that British industry is worth fighting for, then make your voice heard. Share this message, talk to your friends, and let the people in power know that we will not stand by and watch them drive our country into a wall.